2005 was a big year for Castlevania. While Igarashi brought his signature style of Castlevania to home consoles, fans of his winning formula were also treated to Dawn of Sorrow, a DS title following on from Igarashi's best received portable entry, Aria of Sorrow. With stronger hardware and a solid foundation already laid down from previous entries, was Soma Cruz's second adventure a hit? Of all the changes made from Aria to Dawn, the most glaring is the aesthetic. If you don't notice when you pick the game up off the shelf, you'll notice when you're greeted with the opening visuals. Castlevania as you know it has changed, and it goes without saying that people hated it. So why did this happen? Why did the beautiful gothic direction of Ayami Kojima get thrown to the side for this cheap, generic, Studio Dean anime looking trash? Let me guess. This must have been a decision made by some pencil-pushing suits up in Konami's evil headquarters, right? Wrong. This decision was made by Koji Igarashi himself. I'll let that sink in for a moment. Give you some time to truly process this revelation. In interviews, Igarashi elaborated that Ayami Kojima is brilliant, but she's not very fast. Furthermore, since he was working on Curse of Darkness at the same time, he decided to have Kojima focus solely on the bigger title. That's understandable. While Aria of Sorrow was well received, Igarashi noticed that many lesser titles sold better. I think with Aria we may have missed our target audience a bit. Younger gamers tend not to like Miss Kojima's more aesthetic style so much, so we went with a more general anime look for Dawn. So the anime art style is painfully mediocre and cheap looking, sure, but how much did that actually affect the sprites in game? Well, if we ignore these hilariously bad looking character portraits, Dawn of Sorrow looks great. Soma now displays a lot more detail and visual flair in his movements, especially when it comes to weaponry. Looking at how he swings an axe between Aria and Dawn is like night and day. There is weight behind his motions. Enemies are also notably more detailed. Many are directly ripped from Symphony of the Night and adjusted to work on the DS. Backgrounds are more lavishly detailed. Parallax scrolling makes a noticeable return, as does the use of polygons to give locations more of a sense of depth. It's a beautiful thing to see. Within the first location of the game, you can even see these small details like the snow dropping off of this car when Soma drops onto it. Dawn of Sorrow leaps so far from the GBA titles that came before it, nothing shows this better than just the sheer amount of spectacle present in this game. It's like the devs were able to unshackle themselves from the restraints of the GBA and let loose. No more is this clearer than with the bosses. One of the best moments in the entire game has Soma climbing a tower and having this thrilling battle with a behemoth that smashes through the floor, giving you this sense of how much distance you just climbed as you plummet down. At one point, a cannon fires right as time has stopped, and you just witness this beautiful, destructive scene, frozen in place. And eventually you'll be able to witness those events unfold. The scale of the final battle is gigantic, the biggest of the franchise yet. This imposing being towering over Soma is a spectacular sight to behold. The price for all this flashy presentation though is that bosses are more of a stylish affair than substance. This isn't to say they're bad, however, there just isn't much strategy with most of the fights. The fights themselves are so cool though that honestly I didn't think much about it at the time. It's fun, that's all that matters. The only boss I can think of in the entire game that I didn't really like is Rabas. He's just kinda boring. Most of the time you're waiting for it to come out of the water so you can fight. If you sit in the corner, it can't even hit you. Because you're treading water, you lack most of your abilities or maneuverability. Almost to add insult to injury, after the fight you unlock the ability to move in water, which might have made Rabas actually fun. In terms of the core gameplay, Dawn of Sorrow remains mostly unchanged from its GBA predecessor. More quality of life alterations than an entire overhaul to the formula. For example, Soma now is able to use souls to forge new weapons. It's fairly simplistic in execution. You're essentially trading one weapon as well as a soul for a new weapon. Its three-dimensional cousin, Curse of Darkness, has the more in-depth system for weapon forgery. It's a welcome addition though, as it gives you something to actually do with weapons and souls you're not necessarily using. Another interesting ability is how you're able to upgrade the power of a soul by having more of the same soul available. In some cases, a soul which initially feels rather useless could be hiding some rather powerful potential once you have a larger stack. This, along with weapon forging, gives the player even greater incentive to go out there and collect souls, the results of which are deeply satisfying. The ability to have 2 loadouts is one of Dawn of Sorrow's best improvements. You're spending less time in menus, the system encouraging more of a sense of strategy in how I built Soma. I eventually started making 2 different styles, one that focuses on luck for soul and item drop collecting, and another that focused on brute strength and defense. It's great to play around with. As time marches on though, and your level rises, the challenge that bosses and enemies pose doesn't come up with Soma. A symptom, I suppose, of Igarashi's approach to Castlevania thus far, and one that can be remedied through your own self-imposed challenges, or that second run in hard mode. But now, on to the biggest issue in the game. It's time to talk about the touchscreen. Yes, for anyone revisiting Dawn of Sorrow, the fun stops the moment the DS's touchscreen rears its ugly head. Like your drunk grandpa at a family gathering, it's unpleasant to look at, intrusive, clumsy, and you get filled with a looming dread that eventually you're going to be forced into having to interact with them. See, if the touchscreen was only required for these small gimmicks like breaking ice panels or controlling some optional souls here and there, I'll be able to overlook it as some quirky experimentation. But when it comes to the magic seals, it's a different story. I cannot stress enough how much I hate the magic seals. I hated them in 2005, and I hate them now. It's the one thing that's stuck in my memory of this game. An experience so unpleasant that it wiped every positive thought I ever had about it. Essentially, it's a forced minigame. You play with the touchscreen after you defeated a boss. Just draw the icon on the screen. Simple. Except it's not simple. You're timed. You have to draw in the correct order. And if you're like me, you'll be so deep into the fight that the sudden appearance of this seal throws you off your flow and you mess it up, meaning the boss resurrects, and you have to just deal with that. It's like Igarashi looked at QuickTime events, nodded and said, yeah, I can make that worse. Instead of mashing A, you're suddenly required to draw some fine art in 3 seconds. Look, maybe I'm stupid, I don't know, but my brain's not wired for this. It just doesn't work with the Castlevania playstyle. It's painfully gimmicky. Even the earlier seals, like drawing a V shape, are simple enough, but you never go, oh boy, time to draw a seal. It's also simple for me to headbutt a brick wall, but it doesn't mean I'm eager to do it. So how does Dawn of Sorrow's map fare? Pretty good, yeah. Igarashi has started to master these bite-sized levels where save points or teleporters are never too far away. Getting around is a convenience, much like Aria of Sorrow, but better. The real crux isn't really what the delivery does well this time around. It feels just as on brand as Iga's previous installments, but more what it isn't doing. The missed potential. For example, the DS's dual screens allow you to see your map at all times. This is great. It gives the game a better sense of flow as you're less likely to be pausing the action. However, it's on the wrong screen, meaning you can't really do anything with the map when the potential to draw or place markers was right there in your face. Yamane, as always, delivers an excellent soundtrack for Dawn of Sorrow, no longer limited with the GBA. While not as bountiful as the CD levels of the PlayStation, the DS allows much more space on the cart to play with composition without the level of compromise as the GBA. Furthermore, almost every song in Dawn of Sorrow hits. Pitch Black Intrusion may be one of the best opening area songs in a Castlevania game. Its melody is infectious. The opening notes have this air of mystique and enchantment to them. And then you get these elegant strikes of the piano before this heroic banger of a main melody comes in. After Confession has this chilling organ commanding a dark wave of atmosphere. All the pieces that accompany the dominating organ create this awesome song that screams Haunted Castle. Into the Dark Night is a high-tempo, frantic boss theme. It lends to the excitement of the fights and helps elevate those wow moments. It's one of the best boss themes in the entire franchise. The Game Boy Advance was an incredibly limited system, one of its most notable flaws being in the sound department. It had no dedicated sound cards, so to speak, so music had to fight with the CPU to be heard. As you can imagine, this led to many games, especially ones to the scale of an Igavania, having to make many compromises to work. The The DS, however, was a different story, had a lot more room to work with, and while not housing the power of a PlayStation, as demonstrated with some of its launch titles, proved the potential of the system. But what about the narrative that surrounds Dawn's haunting orchestra? Man, this story is completely unhinged absurdity. Going into Dawn of Sorrow, its opening scene just goes straight into it. Soma and Mina are chilling out and then, surprise, cultist! And what do you know? Arikado conveniently appears to help out and give us some exposition. Soma just happens to be able to find their base with Hammer's help and boom, we're off to the races. Going into this following that first scene, I was ready to write the story off into a so absurd it's good category. However, I gotta give Dawn credit. I found myself far more interested in the narrative beats this time around than Aria. Simply put, because we're following on from Aria, much of the supporting cast is able to be more than just a mystery or riddle to be solved. We know who these people are this time around, so we're able to have more of their personality come through. The main story thread is a lot simpler this time around. This cult wants Soma dead so they can resurrect the Dark Lord. There are still some mysteries thrown in for you to discover, but it's not literally every single aspect of the story. Soma has elevated into a more active protagonist, on a journey to wrap up any loose ends of the accursed spirit that dwells within him. He's more confident, in control of his agency, and thanks to this, becomes far more than a cool character design. It is far from perfect, but in my eyes, Dawn's narrative is a vast improvement over its predecessor, giving just enough to keep you invested as you explore the castle. After beating Dawn, you will be rewarded with the usual extra content or modes you would expect, including an interesting multiplayer mode as well as a new character to replay the game. And let me tell you, this is my favourite New Game Plus of any Igavania so far. Playing as Julius is good enough, but having Yoko Belnades and Alucard in his Symphony of the Night form, also playable to create a Castlevania free team reunion, elevates this mode so much higher than its contemporaries. But it gets even better. Julius mode is unlocked when you witness the bad ending in which Soma becomes the Dark Lord, meaning that this mode plays as a what-if scenario, and you get to fight Soma as an exclusive battle. It's awesome! This mode goes above and beyond. Best of all, there are no seals, no dumb touchscreen gimmicks. My biggest strike to the main scenario is removed for this mode. Julius may not have as many moves as Richter did. Alucard plays with a more limited skill set than Symphony, but it doesn't matter. This mode is brilliant, and so far is the only extra character mode I've willingly gone out of my way to see through to the end. Dawn of Sorrow's place in Castlevania lore is interesting in that it marks the end of the series' timeline, so to speak. A light novel was released, roughly translated as Castlevania, Riccordanza of the God's Abyss. It takes place a year after the events of Dawn and includes the final appearance of Soma Cruz's story, confronting death one last time. I will not be hostile towards you. With that look, you seem to know nothing of this matter. What are you talking about? Would you still not want to return to the castle and be my master? I have no plans of becoming the Dark Lord. Thus, it is none of your business. No harm will happen to the young lady you are thinking about. Continue to live your life in peace as a human. Hey, answer my question! Right now, you are not my master. I have no obligation to answer your question. It's comforting to know Soma, and to a greater extent Dracula's spirit, has a happy ending. Seeing the rise, the fall, and the rebirth of the franchise's staple antagonist ties the timeline up neatly. Dawn of Sorrow was a game that exceeded expectations. A sequel to a reasonably popular title, made fast and cheap, released on Nintendo's next big handheld system in its debut year, given respectable marketing and releasing in a quieter part of the financial season. The marketing and expectations more focused on its bigger, more ambitious cousin, primed for a holiday release on major home systems. And while Curse wasn't successful enough for Konami to follow it up, Dawn of Sorrow saw universal acclaim, leading Iga to continue this handheld series. So with that all being said, is Dawn of Sorrow better than Symphony of the Night? The foundation that Symphony established has seen growing pains throughout the Game Boy Advance's library, but minor refinements and new mechanics come together in a way which rivals, if not surpasses, Symphony in many ways. But really it's only because it's standing on the shoulders of giants that it could reach this point. Looking forward, it will be exciting to see what a game without the frustrating gimmicks the DS could really do. Could it be the definitive step forwards for the franchise? Next, we unveil the Portrait of Ruin. And that was Dawn of Sorrow, a game that far exceeded my expectations. I feel like my memory kind of merged all the good parts of this game with Aria of Sorrow, and I kind of just remembered the awkward touchscreen gimmicks before replaying it. If you enjoyed this video, why not follow me on Patreon? I have a Discord server with Stevem and his community, as well as exclusive videos like commentaries or vlogs. We recently did a commentary on Circle of the Moon. Maybe that will intrigue you a little. Thank you very much for watching. That's it.